Ben, it's been 6 months since Quickslide have launched the Slim Midrail. How has the response been?
Well, the response has been great. That's why we did it in the first place. We knew our customer base was calling out for it. So we worked with Epwin, Spectus, and we managed to get the product to market. So we now sit in a situation where it's a sort of a cornerstone of our manufacturing. Now we're making quite a volume of windows with it. We're continuing to drive the volume through the factory and upsell. But it's one of them where there isn't a huge amount to say. The product's been from nothing designed, implemented. We now have got all the color offerings on the table, so you can literally just tick a box and have it just like you would a normal product. So the product implementation and product design has been faultless, and now it's just a case of driving the volumes. I mean, it is a little bit more labor intensive, but not significantly so. It carries a surcharge with it, but ultimately it's a little bit more labor intensive. But beyond that, seamless transition into our production facility, and it's going well.
Why was it introduced?
Well, it was the next natural evolution for the system. So it didn't exist with the Spectus VS, which is 20 odd years old now. But some of our competitors had that type of product, and it kind of made sense that it was something that we were able to offer because we occupy a decent share of the market with VS manufacture, and our customers are calling for it. And what we want to do is make sure that we are facilitating our customers' needs and requirements, quite simply. Plus, it allows us to enter different markets like conservation, for example, and we've been quite successful since the introduction of getting more and more conservation licenses and so on and so forth in different areas. So that's been good because you've obviously got the fully mechanical window, wood grain effect, Slim Midrail. It takes someone with a really, really keen eye to spot a timber window now from a plastic one. It really does. So it was the kind of the missing piece, really. It was the string on the bow that we didn't quite have. So we now sit in a situation where it's live, it's working, and our customers are free to order it, and they are doing.
It was quite a significant new product feature. How did the rollout go?
Well, I guess there's two sides to it. From a sales standpoint, it's really exciting because it's something new that we've not had before. So we get to go to our customer base and say, look what we've got, and this is coming soon, and we do all the fancy marketing stuff. So it's great that from from the front end of the business, we've got something new and exciting to talk about and market and really get behind and drive. That's great. Operationally, it's a different animal because we're quite an automated business. So changes, it's not a guy cutting things with a sword. You know what I mean? Yeah. This is like, okay, we now have to reprogram this to accept this and get some people over from Germany to get these profiles into the machining center. And as you know from some of our other discussions, we've got some quite complicated machinery. So it's, we've got a slim profile, which is a lot less space to fit bits of steel in, and you've got to get a machine to do it automatically. And then it's a thinner profile, so we've got to consider things like bowing and so on and so forth. So this product has to follow a slightly different process with some glass bonding involved that our normal window doesn't. So there's all sorts of, and that's before you start even setting up our processing system, so the sales team can actually, process it and so on. Operationally, it's horrific. It's just horrific. Anytime you do anything, and this is quite a large new product introduction because it's a whole new profile that you've got to fit across two different machines, and then you've got to write the SOPs, so the standard operating procedures for how it actually goes together. it's awful. It's just awful, really, having to roll something like that out, and it takes a lot of planning and a lot of internal meetings, and it really does go on forever. But we're used to it. You know, we've had to deal with a lot worse. But it's because we go to the nth degree on the operational side that we can make it look like it all works wonderfully. It's kind of like that analogy of the swan floating across the water, but the legs are going underneath. It's very much that when it comes to such a large new product introduction, because you only get one chance to do it, and we really don't want to not do it well and properly and robustly and ensure that we really have nailed everything. We've got probably 170 fabricators across all of our production facility, and there's a huge volume of them that have to be trained in this new product because it is a whole new product and it goes together differently. And yeah, so that was a thing that we did. It was awful, but we're used to it, and we got it in and got it working just fine, and now it's lovely.
So on the rollout, was there a capacity limit, and has that now been lifted?
Yeah, so part of our new product introduction process, we generally go with on most things, a soft start. So we always limit the volume that's available, because from day one, the message has to get out there to the customer base, even though we may have told them for 3 or 4 months in advance. It does take time to kind of to get going properly. So we put in we might put in a fundamental limit of, let's say, 100 for week 1, and we'll plan usually an 8 to 12 week capacity expansion, if that makes sense. So we might go 100 week 1, 120, 40. But it also depends on the challenges that we hit along the way when you start to go with volume manufacture. So we'll have done a variety of tests and so on and so forth to understand, what the issues are, and we'll put fixes in for them. But when you're running at volume, different things come up. So to start with, yes, we did have a limit, but we'd planned that transition over sort of 8 to 12 weeks. Now there's no limit whatsoever. We've kind of crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's, and it's just ready to rock and roll.
So sort of on that note, are there any limits with colorways?
I believe not. The last part of the rollout was just getting the last of the colors in place, because on that side it wasn't necessarily our limit. Remember, it was a new product not just for us but for the system house. So they've got to also do all of their stuff in terms of, are we extruding it to the right size? Is the dimensional accuracy correct? The tool tuning. It's a brand new extrusion tool that's landed, so there's all the nonsense involved with that. And then it's a case of, well, we also have to foil it and laminate it, and then what volumes Quickslide are you going to do? Because that's going to drive what capacities we put in place and what stock volumes we have. So we had sort of a stage 1 and stage 2 rollout. So stage 1 was pretty much us having the discussion with Epwin to say, well, these are our biggest volume runners. So smooth white, obviously, white wood grain for us, and maybe grey on white. Start with 3. Then we phase in the different colours that are slightly lower volume. But we work to their lead times as well. So they're not necessarily going to stock everything, but they will just have potentially a slightly longer lead time. But other than that, the colours are in, and it's, again, we're off and running with it.
I'm guessing that's more than white, golden oak, and mahogany. We don't even do mahogany.
I don't think we do any of those, to be perfectly honest, at all. We've pretty much stopped those colours now. Times have changed, Richard.
So you've also recently achieved PAS 24 on the Slim Midrail. Why was that important?
Well, I mean, it's when you're looking at what customers are after these days, it's one of the 3 or 4 major buying factors. It's thermal efficiency, security, price, maybe availability. But it's always going to be up there, because no one wants to buy a window or a door that's not secure. Simple as that. But But we can't take all the credit for it. It's absolutely, I've got to kind of hand over a load of the praise here to the technical guys at Spectus and Epwin. They did all the thinking, all the product development for the new hardware that was required. We helped build Windows, sent them for testing, and so on and so forth. So we did our bit. We actually made the product for them, but they had to come up with some really clever stuff to get it through, and fair play to them. But we now sit with a Pass24 window, which is wonderful. So not only have we got the Slim Rail, but we can offer all of the options we've historically had available on our normal window as well. So that's, for us, it's a big step forward, because if I was ordering Sash windows, I'd definitely want them Pass24. It couldn't be more simple. But it's a big rollout. There's a lot of work involved in doing the Pass24 on this Slim Rail. I think when me and the head of quality were kind of going through the actual process, our normal Pass24 VS is something like, I don't know, 3 or 4 steps. I think this was 16.
Ooh.
So it is late. When we're charging the same amount of money for it, it is hugely more labor intensive. But that can't be, reflected or to the detriment of the customer, because effectively they're buying, they just want a Pass24 window. So we pick that up internally, and we manage it through. And we'll refine it as time goes on, but for now, that's where it is.